Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Duncan Hunter Sr. I'm the father of the defendant, and I just wanted to give you my take on this as an attorney and as a 28-year member of Congress who'd been through all the battles. This was a political hit job. Ironically, the only people in that courtroom who had violated campaign law were the prosecutors. A few months ago, Judicial Watch started an investigation on the prosecutors. This is their report in part. They found that the Hillary Clinton fundraiser that they went to on August 7th, 2015 was a violation of the Hatch Act. That's the act that says that American citizens are entitled to neutral prosecutors who aren't political, who don't show a political bias. At that time, everybody thought Hillary Clinton was going to be the next president of the United States, who would appoint the next U.S. attorney from this great community of San Diego. So Alana Robinson and Emily Allen, the two key prosecutors in this case, crashed the Hillary Clinton fundraiser in violation of the Hatch Act. It was a $2,700 fundraiser. They went in paying no money on the taxpayer dime, which is against the law. That's a violation of what is known as the Hatch Act. When Judicial Watch had to sue the federal government to get their emails, this is what they found by Alana Robinson. I was blown away by your incredible hospitality and can't thank you enough for allowing us to crash this fabulous party. Now, what American citizen wants to be prosecuted by somebody who's gone to their political opponent's fundraiser? They were asked to recuse themselves from this case, and they didn't do it. So I formally gave to Emily Allen today, I formally served on her a citizen's complaint for violation of the Hatch Act. It's a formal complaint, the forms of which are made available by the federal government, and I'm going to give you copies of them. Now, when they walked out of that fundraiser, what did these prosecutors do to protect America against Mr. Hunter? Well, first, they charged him, and this is, I'm not making this up. Let me hold it here, Steve. This is one of the formal counts against Mr. Hunter. Illegal transportation of the family Easter rabbit. This is Egbert. Egbert's dead now, he died of old age, but they thought that that was important enough to charge that Mr. Hunter transported the family bunny rabbit on campaign money to a legitimate family event in Washington. They didn't complain about the family, they complained about the rabbit going. This is the Marine Corps Marathon. They thought that America needed to be protected against congressmen who run in the Marine Corps Marathon and their wives. And in this case, Margaret and Duncan both ran in the Marine Corps Marathon, and they paid with campaign dollars to travel back to Washington, D.C. to run in the Marine Corps Marathon. The prosecutor said that's not a legitimate charity. Well, if you think the Marine Corps Marathon is a legitimate charity, you might find that the prosecutors were biased. Here's another illegal act that they performed, according to the prosecutors. They went to the First Lady's luncheon. This is hosted by the First Lady of the United States, and actually I've got a picture of the White House. They hold it at a hotel next to the White House, where the First Lady hosted Margaret Hunter and dozens of congressional wives and congressmen, Democrat and Republican. Interestingly, the team here of prosecutors didn't go after any of the other dozens of congressmen or their families who went to the First Lady's luncheon, but they went after the Hunters. That's never been done in the history of the United States, but they did it. So I'm going to give to you copies of this report. Let me see, Steve, that first report. This is the report by a very respected organization which sues the federal government to pull down FOIA requests when people are hiding things. The prosecutors hid these emails for 2 years. We finally got them. When the judge thought at the last hearing that maybe they didn't go to the fundraiser for Hillary Clinton after all, and that's what he said. He said maybe they didn't go. Maybe they just got their pictures at 9 o'clock and left. We found conclusive proof that they attended Hillary Clinton's fundraiser before they went out and charged Mr. Hunter and Mrs. Hunter with things like illegal rabbit transport, going to the First Lady's luncheon, and going to the Marine Corps Marathon. Here is Mrs. Robinson's email, and there's lots more. I'm providing you with a copy of the investigative report by Judicial Watch, and I've served on both of them through Mrs. Allen a formal Hatch Act complaint, which she now holds in her hands. You might ask her about it when she comes out to make a statement. Any questions? Okay. Ma'am?
How do you feel about the sentencing today?
I can't hear you, ma'am. I've got very bad ears.
The sentencing today, what is your response to that?
I thought it was expected. I thought it was guideline. The 11 months, I thought that was the guideline. Yes. Remember, they pled, and they asked our guys to go out to dinner with them and said, can't we make a deal? They pled to one count of 60. As you recall, there were 60 counts involving the rabbits, the First Lady's luncheon, the Marine Corps Marathon. They pled to one count. The 11 months, I think, was recommended by probation, and I think that was expected. Sir, I can't hear you. Bring that over here. Here's what I wish the judge had seen. When Mr. Halperin, who didn't tell the truth and who is enormously biased, as you may have guessed from his statements, when he talked about Mr. Hunter going in January of 2010 up to Reno and Tahoe, Mr. Hunter went to that convention with 8 other Republican and Democrat congressmen and senators, including U.S. Senator Ben Nelson, who won an award. They appeared on stage at an event for the SCI convention, which is absolutely legal, and they received, everyone, Democrat and Republican, received a campaign contribution in that event. And Mr. Halpern was either so dumb or so disingenuous that he called that a vacation for Mr. Hunter. Now, I want to point out one thing. He didn't prosecute Senator Ben Nelson, who received the award from that convention, and he didn't prosecute any of the dozens. Hold that for a second, Steve. He didn't prosecute any of the dozens, and nor did Mrs. Allen or Mrs. Robinson, dozens of Democrats and Republicans who go to the First Lady's luncheon. They go to that every year, and I guess they have for 100 years. Margaret Hunter and Duncan Hunter went to it, and they got prosecuted for it. So I think we offer this up to the citizens of San Diego. Do you see any bias here? Do you see a little bit of bias for prosecuting a person for going to the First Lady's luncheon or going, let me see, the Marine Corps Marathon? Running in the Marine Corps Marathon, or lastly, transporting the family bunny rabbit. Now, I'm going to leave you with this quote by the prosecutors when they went to Hillary Clinton's fundraiser and then claimed or allowed the judge to think that they didn't go. In fact, I think this gentleman was at that particular hearing where the judge surmised that maybe they never went to the fundraiser for Hillary Clinton. Maybe they just got their pictures at 9 and left. Here is conclusive proof, Mr. Prosecutor, that they did go. Thank you for allowing us to crash that fabulous party. That's the email that they kept away from us for 2 years until we finally had to sue in federal court. Judicial Watch sued to get it. So I'm going to give you a copy of the Judicial Watch report.
to these charges. He took responsibility to that.
Yes, absolutely he did. Absolutely he did. He took responsibility for going to the First Lady's luncheon. He took responsibility for going to the Marine Corps Marathon. And the point that I'm making today is that these charges, like the one where he went to Reno, Tahoe, with 7 other congressmen and senators who appeared and got campaign contributions for their appearance, what I'm telling you is there's never been a case in the history of the United States where that has been considered to be a criminal act. So that's my point.
The judge has twice rejected this line of argument.
Well, the answer is you said that the judge did not accept this line of argument. We're going to give. I've filed now a formal complaint on Hatch Act violation. Here's the answer to your question. With the U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C., with the Office of Professional Relations, OPR. I believe that's what it's called. It's been filed, it's been served on the 2 U.S. attorneys, so let's let the Attorney General of the United States decide if crashing a $2,700 fundraiser and then going after the political adversary of the person whose fundraiser you went to is a violation of the Hatch Act. Let's let them decide. That'll be determined in coming months. Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Phil Halpern. I'll have very brief remarks and followed by Emily Allen, and after that we'll take some questions, okay? Today, the truth was victorious. Today, the facts were victorious. Unfortunately, in our country, too many people have come to embrace the notion that the individuals who write the laws feel they're above the laws. In committing campaign finance and then denying it to the nations in general and to the people in the 50th in particular, and continuing to serve in office, Duncan Hunter came to embody the very notion that politicians thought they were above the law. Today, the people of this country can see that's not the fact. Today, people can see that truth matters and facts matter. Because when individuals start believing that facts don't matter, then those same people will believe the system of justice doesn't matter. And today's prosecution shows that's not a fact.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. In light of the CDC guidance and the County of San Diego's rules, we really appreciate everyone being here today. It's not our intention to keep you here very long, so we want to take some questions briefly and then send everybody on their way and disperse and get everybody home. My name's Emily Allen. I'm one of the prosecutors on this case. So we're happy to take some questions right now.
What did you think about the amount of time that he gave you? 11 months, is that, are we satisfied with that? Or?
11 months is a very fair sentence. We're very pleased with Judge Whalen's thoughtful consideration of all of the factors in this case. And as you know, an 11-month sentence was right in the middle of the range that the parties agreed to as part of the plea agreement.
Can you look when you answer to the middle of the crowd? Instead of execution on the May 26th, is that the end or is going to be continued?
Judge Whalen ordered Duncan Hunter to appear to serve his sentence starting in May, late May. That date will hold, barring change in circumstances or a motion by the defendant to change that date. At this time, that's the day he is scheduled to arrive at the courthouse.
Malcolm, they have been said to make memorandum being over the top. And I'd love to get your reaction to that and how you feel now that you've got the 11-month sentence.
I'm not the first person to note that transparency is one of the guiding principles of any democracy. It's important for the court and it's important for the public to understand what transpired. Only by individuals understanding what truly happened can they make an informed judgment.
Judge Whalen, we're confident, is going to consider all the factors relevant to Mrs. Hunter's sentencing, and we'll get there in April when her hearing is scheduled.
Is it still April 13th?
It is still scheduled for the same time in April. I believe it's
It's April 7th, I believe. April 7th.
April 7th. Will you seek jail time based on her cooperation and what she was going to say?
again, that hasn't yet been determined, and in part, we expect that Judge Whalen will factor in the sentence today in making a determination about the fair and appropriate sentence for Margaret Hunter, but our recommendation has not yet been determined. We expect to file sentencing papers in her case as well, ahead of time.
You know, there was some reference in there to the pandemic, to the COVID pandemic, and there's a lot of discussion in criminal justice circles about not sending non-violent low-level offenders into custodial sentences until this is over. Do you have any thoughts about, even if it's May, about sending anybody into a prison sentence now with the pandemic going on, or is it better served on home?
Well, we have full confidence that Judge Whalen will take all of the appropriate circumstances into consideration when he's imposing sentence and also in determining the appropriate date for Mr. Hunter to report to serve it.
You had said that you didn't want to go forward today. Can you elaborate on that at all?
Thank you all very much. We're done for today. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll send a written press
Everyone
release.
stay
Thank
safe.
you.
Well, they didn't want to stick around too long. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, this was a political hit job by a Democrat prosecution team, and I would recommend to all of you that you take a look at the Judicial Watch investigation that is being undertaken right now, which now has some results that showed that the prosecutor who just talked to you and said nobody's above the law violated the Hatch Act.